Happening, y'all? It's your boy, God's Child. First video, and I'm a big sports fan. I love the NBA, and I just had to ask myself one question: how is Tim Duncan not a top five player all time? I always hear people like Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, Shannon Sharp, or Skip Bayless talk about, yeah, Tim Duncan's the greatest power forward of all time. He took all the he was the leader of the big three Spurs and all these things, and nobody can ever say, but I never hear nobody ever say that he's like a top five player, or people say he's maybe top 10, or you know what I'm saying. People talk about Tim Duncan like he's just an average player. So I asked myself, is Tim Duncan a top, like, why do people not consider Tim Duncan a top five player? So I decided, let's go through his career, and you decide. And let me try to prove my case, push my facts. I'm coming with nothing but facts, and if anybody has anything wrong with anything I'm saying, I'll personally apologize, and we could debate about it. Because I love to be corrected with knowledge. But first, Tim Duncan was in a 4-year program at Wake Forest, where he was the best player in college. But I'm not even going to go through his college career. I'm just going to talk about all NBA career. And yes, I am on Wikipedia. And like I said, if I say anything non-factual, or if anybody got something to say, I'll personally apologize. And if anybody disagree with anything I gotta say, I just say, please let me finish my statement. Let me plead my case. Let me push my case, push my facts, and then we could debate or do whatever you want to do. So first of all, we just gonna start off with Tim Duncan is a 5-time NBA Finals champion, a 3-time NBA Finals MVP, a 2-time NBA regular season MVP, 15-time All-Star, NBA All-Star Game MVP in the year 2000, a 10-time All-NBA first team, 10 times straight, 3-time second team All-NBA, 2-time third team All-NBA, 8-time All-NBA defensive first team, 7-time All-NBA defensive second team, Rookie of the Year, 98, All-NBA rookie first team, NBA Teammate of the Year, 2015, jersey retired, yada, yada, yada. USA Man Athlete of the Year, 03 Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year. And Tim Duncan also averages 19 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, and 3 assists per game, with 2 blocks per game as well. And what people don't understand is people always like to give all this credit to Greg Popovich, and the Spurs are such an upstanding organization and all these things. No, Tim Duncan made the Spurs. Tim Duncan created that culture. Tim Duncan was everything to the Spurs. Tim Duncan is the Spurs. That's why they haven't done anything since he left. The Spurs haven't done anything since Tim Duncan left. Tim Duncan was the driving force. Tim Duncan was to the Spurs what Michael Jordan was to the Bulls, and what Bill Russell was to the Celtics. Without Michael Jordan, without the Celtics, Larry Bird didn't make the Celtics. Larry Bird won 3 championships and was the Finals MVP of 2. We'll get to him later, but in another video or something. But Larry wasn't the Celtics were already a powerhouse by the time Larry got there. The Celtics won in the late 50s, all the 60s, and then they won into the 70s with JoJo White and John Havlicek and Dave Cowens. Nobody talks about that big 3 of the Celtics with JoJo White, John Havlicek, and Dave Cowens. Don't nobody say Dave Cowens, white man, Caucasian man. Dave Cowens was the MVP of the league in 1975. I want to say 74. We can look it up. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Dave Cowens. He was an MVP of the league in the 70s. White man. They on the Celtics. And I want to say it was 73. I want to say Dave Cowens was the MVP of the NBA in 1973, and then the next year, Dave Cowens, the former MVP of 1973, in 1974, the Boston Celtics go on to win with JoJo White as point guard, John Havlicek as small forward, and Dave Cowens as center. They go on to win the NBA Finals. Then I believe in 1975 you get Rick Barry and the Golden State and the San Francisco Warriors to win their championship, and then JoJo White and John Havlicek and Dave Cowens go on to win another NBA final. So they won two in the 70s in a league that had Willis Reed, Walt Clyde Frazier, Oscar Robertson, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor. They were able to win two championships. So the Celtics were good, but the Celtics didn't win for 5 years after Bill Russell retired. But that's another video for another day. I digress. But I'm just saying, Tim Duncan, just he 19 points per game, 11 rebounds, 10.8 rebounds per game. That's like 11. That's basically 11 rebounds per game, 3 assists a game, and 2 blocks per game. And if anything I'm saying is wrong, brothers, please correct me. But my case is, why is Tim Duncan? Is Tim Duncan a top 5 player all time? Tim Duncan is renowned worldwide as the greatest power forward to ever play throughout the history of the NBA. And I always wonder, like, well, then he should be a top 5 player then. He's the greatest power forward at his position. And then I go to his stats, and then let's give you the context. Tim Duncan was drafted in the 97. Tim Duncan was drafted in the 97 NBA draft. So his first season was the 97-98 season. That was Michael Jordan's last season with the Bulls. So Jordan, in his rookie year, Tim Duncan wins Rookie of the Year, and I think they lose in the second round of the Western Conference Finals. It'll say it right here. They're known as the Twin Towers. All that. I'm not going to go through all that, brothers. But Tim Duncan, he wins Rookie of the Year, and then he loses like in the second round of the playoff in the NBA playoffs. So next year, in his second year, it was a shortened season, the lockout year. It was the 99 season. So they only played 50 games. In that season, Tim Duncan was able to sweep, brothers, Shaq and Kobe Lakers, the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. Mind you, they did not have Phil Jackson yet. This was the year right before they got. So Tim Duncan made them go get Phil Jackson. And yes, they did win 3 straight after that. They went to go get Phil Jackson. The Lakers had to go get Phil Jackson to beat Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich. Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and Greg Popovich. But he swept the Lakers. Let's just put it this way. They swept. It was a whole three-peat. Hold on. Here we go. This was the second year of the Twin Towers pairing. David Robinson, second year star forward Tim Duncan. After defeating the Minnesota Timberwolves in 4 games, San Antonio, so they swept the Minnesota Timberwolves in 1999. San Antonio recorded back-to-back sweeps in the second round and conference finals, sweeping the Los Angeles Lakers and the Portland Trailblazers. The victory over Portland, and that Portland Trailblazers team had Scottie Pippen on it. That Portland Trailblazers team had Scottie Pippen. I believe they had Scottie Pippen and Rasheed Wallace. And if I'm wrong about that, brothers, please correct me. But we could even go and look at their roster. Rasheed Wallace, Jermaine O'Neal, Damon Stoudemire, okay, well I guess Scotty didn't get there till 2000 then, but they had Rasheed Wallace. Yeah, they didn't have Scotty then. When they were able to sweep Shaq and Kobe Lakers, they swept the Portland Trailblazers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. All the way back to back sweeps until they met with the New York Knicks with a hurt Patrick Ewing. And then they were able to win their first championship with Tim Duncan as the MVP. I said that to say that, brothers, that Tim Duncan was able to sweep a Shaq and Kobe Lakers right before they were able to get a Phil Jackson was because I always look at when I break down my when I do my top 11 list, I like to do a top 11 because that's how great all 11 of these players are. And I think it's a debate. I think it's all debatable each player that's in front of the other. But in every era, I believe it's only like about two, maybe three players that are. It's always two to three players that are usually in the playoff, that are usually in the finals every year, or usually right there in the mix of it every year. Like in the '60s, like in the late '50s, you had Bill Russell, Bob Pettit. Then in the '60s, you had Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, with Jerry West. People like to say, what about Oscar Robertson? Oscar Robertson was not a winner. Oscar Robertson was able to win one MVP in a league with Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, who averaged only 15 points, but averaged 22 and a half rebounds, and was able to win, and is 10-0 in every Game 7 he ever played. Every Game 7, 10 Game 7s, he never lost one. So that's how great Bill Russell was. And you ask anybody, read any column about Bill Russell, he not only did he win 5 regular season MVPs, and they say Bill Russell had all the talent. Well, then why he win all 5 MVPs then? Why he win all 5 MVPs and didn't nobody else win none? Why Bob Cousy won an MVP right before Bill Russell got there and never won another one? Why didn't Sam Jones win one? Why ain't Casey Jones win one? Tom Henson, none of them won one. But Bill Russell did. He won 5. Bill Russell was the player coach and won 2 back-to-back as the player coach, coaching. But anyway, I digress. I said that to say, like I said, it was Wilt Chamberlain, Bob Pettit, and Bill Russell in the 50s. Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain in the 60s, mixed in with Jerry West, not Oscar Robertson, because people like to say, what about Oscar Robertson? Oscar Robertson, even when he got Kareem, even when he went to the Milwaukee Bucks, they were only able to win 1 championship. And people like to say Oscar Robertson never played with nobody. Oscar Robertson played with Jerry Lucas. And I think another Hall of Famer as well, if I'm not mistaken. But Oscar Robertson just could never get over the hump. He couldn't get through. He couldn't overcome Wilt. He couldn't overcome the Lakers. He couldn't overcome Bill Russell. He couldn't overcome. That's why he's not he's top 15, arguably. He's top 15. Top 15, top 20. He's a top 20 player. To me, he's never been a top 10, never. Top 20, maybe. Top 20, guaranteed. Definitely Oscar Robertson's a top 20 player, but not top 5, not top 10, not top 15, no. But back to Tim Duncan. But Jerry West was always in the finals. Jerry West always had them in the finals. He had Elgin Baylor. Okay, well, Oscar Robertson had Jerry Lucas. And that's the only Hall of Famers that Jerry West was playing with. Gail Goodrich, Elgin Baylor. Or it would be Jerry West, Elgin Baylor. Or it would be Jerry West, Gail Goodrich, Elgin Baylor. Or just Jerry West, Elgin Baylor. That's all. So you mean to tell me it's that the combination of Jerry West and Elgin Baylor is better than the combination of Jerry Lucas and Oscar Robertson? If Oscar Robertson is just so great, why couldn't he never do nothing with Jerry Lucas? Why couldn't he do nothing with none of the other people he had? Jerry West was able to go to the finals with Elgin Baylor 9 times. Maybe 8 times, because I think in '72 that was when Elgin Baylor retired. When the year they did finally win the championship, if that's not crazy enough. But then once you get to the '70s, Kareem pretty much dominated the '70s. Like Kareem was the best player in the '70s, and nobody really questioned. There wasn't no. The '70s was more just like a team of good teams. Like in the early '70s, you had like I said, Willis Reed and Walt Clyde Frazier. They won 2 championships in '70 and '71, and '70 and '73. Excuse me. Then in '71, you have Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You had great dynamic duos. You had great dynamic duos in that time right there. You had, like I said, you had Willis Reed, Walt Clyde Frazier, Oscar Robertson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, and Jerry West. And then they won again because that's how I went. It went the Knicks in '70 with Willis Reed and Walt Clyde Frazier, the Milwaukee Bucks with Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Los Angeles Lakers with Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West, and then again the New York Knicks in 1973 with Willis Reed and Walt Clyde Frazier. Then in 1974, the Celtics bounced back with JoJo White and John Havlicek with Dave Cowens. And then in '75, you had the San Francisco Warriors with Rick Barry. And then in '76, the Celtics were able to win again with JoJo White and John Havlicek. And then in '77, I want to say the Atlanta Hawks with Bill Walton came. That's when the Atlanta Hawks and Bill Walton was able to go on his great run. He won the finals that year with the Atlanta Hawks and their one and only championship, I believe. And then you have in '78 and '79, I believe the Washington Bullets. I think it was. I want to say it was the Washington Bullets and the Seattle SuperSonics in '78 and '79. That's when Dennis Johnson wins his championship with the Seattle SuperSonics, and then Wes Unseld and I want to say Earl Monroe win one with the Washington Bullets because they go back to back. Then in '79 draft, that's when Magic and Bird come in, and then '80, that's when the Lakers went. Kareem's the MVP, but the Magic wins Finals MVP. The Lakers, then Magic, then Larry wins in '81, and then so you got the people that the era battle, like there wasn't really no one to battle. Like Kareem was just the best player of the '70s. Kareem was just the best player of the '70s. He didn't really have anybody to challenge him for that title. Kareem was just the best player of the '70s. He was because he won five. Kareem won 6 MVPs from 1971 to 1980. So from 1970 to 1980, he won 6 MVPs. He dominated the decade as the best player and was able to win a championship with an MVP as the best player, as the Finals MVP. So he didn't really battle. To me, he didn't battle anyone in the '70s. But he was the best player of the era. He won the era. I feel like you could say that it was either the New York Knicks or the Boston Celtics, because they were the only teams that were able to win back to back or able to maybe come. But he was able to. To me, he was able to win because he won the most MVPs and he was the most dominant player and he was able to win the most. But then I would say in the '80s, it came down to Magic and Bird. Then